More than a month into a shaky ceasefire, the US and Iran have made no progress on a deal to end hostilities. With both sides seemingly entrenched in their positions, an uneasy stalemate looks set to play out for now. I'm Hazem Sika, and this is the Newsmakers. Now, with US President Donald Trump in China for a high-stakes summit with Xi Jinping, the war with Iran shows no sign of ending. Peace talks remain deadlocked, global oil prices are climbing, businesses around the world are starting to feel the pain, and the conflict has now cost American taxpayers nearly $30 billion. But Trump says the economic costs are not a factor. His bottom line is Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
The US-Iran war is in its 10th week and showing increasing signs of a frozen conflict. No peace deal announced, low-level incidents are still continuing, but the intensity has waned considerably from its early days. Iran is still targeting ships that try to sneak past it in the Strait of Hormuz, yet allows certain ships through if they pay or if the countries the ships belong to negotiate. But oil and gas exports remain critically impacted by the effective blockade on the strait. A confident Donald Trump departs to China for a meeting with Xi Jinping, waving away questions about whether he will need Xi Jinping's help to reopen the choke point.
I don't think he can help in any way?
No, I don't think we need any help with Iran. We'll win it one way or the other. We'll win it peacefully or otherwise. Their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, every single element of their war machine is gone. They've killed a lot of people. They've killed 42,000 people at least over the last month and a half. We win.
But Iran poured cold water on Trump's assessment of US-Iran negotiations.
We're talking about negotiations. Negotiations means give and take. Negotiation means being ready to recognize your interlocutors' demands and concerns. But if you think that negotiations is 100% satisfaction one-sidedly, that's not negotiations. That's imposition of your will, and it will not happen in any case, at least as far as Iran is concerned.
In reporting from the New York Times, secret US intelligence assessments say Iran is still far more capable than what the president is letting on. Reportedly, 30 of Iran's 33 missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz remain operationally accessible, with Iran retaining 70% of its mobile missile launching capabilities. It paints a daunting picture for the US president's ambitions to secure the waterway, especially if full-blown hostilities resume if the current fragile ceasefire collapses. Amid this backdrop, the UK and France co-chaired a virtual meeting of 40 defence ministers from nations around the world on Tuesday. The UK said it would contribute drones, fighter jets, a warship and autonomous tech to clear sea mines to restore confidence for ships to transit the waterway. But the mission is intended to be defensive only, once hostilities have ended and when conditions allow. Oil and gas shortages aren't the only things causing worry. UN officials say millions could face hunger if fertilizer supplies aren't restored.
Some of the poorest countries in Africa are highly dependent on fertilizers from the Strait of Hormuz. For instance, the Sudan, Somalia, South Sudan, Kenya, Mozambique, but also in Southeast Asia. Sri Lanka is another example.
Other ripple effects are being felt throughout the globe. From the mundane, like snack manufacturers in Japan switching to black and white packaging as key ingredients in coloured ink dwindle, to the serious, fleets of fishing trawlers laying dormant on the coastlines of Indonesia, local fishermen unable to pay for the growing costs of diesel. With no major breakthroughs in the peace process, ships in the strait face a choice: run with their transponders dark and hope not to get struck, or get their governments to pay Iran what Iran considers it is due. something nobody had to do before the war.
Well, joining me now to debate that and more from London, we have Iran analyst at the London School of Economics and Political Science, Massoumeh Torfeh. From Columbus, Ohio, retired United States Army officer and professor of military history at the Ohio State University, Peter Mansoor. And joining us from Tehran, a research fellow at the University of Tehran, Mohammed Eslami. Good to have you all with us. So, Massoumeh Torfeh, let me start with you then. The U.S. seems confident at this point that pressure will at some point force Iran to compromise. But there seems to be little evidence of that at this point. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, we've been watching the U.S. and Israel try to annihilate Iran over the past 2-3 months. And we can see that today Pentagon is admitting that they've spent $30 billion on the military. And yet Iran is stronger today, they say, they have admitted, than it was before the war. And we have seen Iran, they try to decapitate the military IRGC. They didn't succeed. They tried to destroy the ruling elite. They didn't succeed. Well, they succeeded, but it hasn't changed anything. And then the military is intact. Most of they say the Americans make all kinds of claims, like the Navy is totally destroyed, but we see them navigating the Straits of Hormuz quite confidently. In effect, really, a lot of the experts, even in the American heartland and amongst the Republicans, are coming out and saying this is a checkmate for United States. This has been a disastrous war, worse than Vietnam and Afghanistan. So I don't see how the Americans can claim any kind of victory. Iran's stockpiles of missiles and drones are intact, and they still pose a serious threat. Iran's nuclear is intact as well. So they haven't annihilated any of these things that they made us believe they had destroyed. So I think United States should take the back position and start thinking about making serious suggestions to Iran for some kind of reconciliation, some kind of a deal, because the way it's going, I don't think Iran is in a position to accept any of their points.
Peter Mansoor, what's your view on this? Is the U.S. achieving any kind of deterrence, or is it unintentionally normalizing Iranian leverage?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that the bombing campaign achieved some tactical and operational objectives. Regardless of what my colleague says, the Iranian military today is much less strong than it was before this war began. But that might not matter, because strategically Iran is in a superior position. Its effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz has put the world economy under pressure, and has put the Trump administration into a bind, because to open the Strait of Hormuz would require boots on the ground. And it's a step that the American Congress, the American people, don't support, and the Trump administration is unlikely to undertake. Instead, the Trump administration has now decided that it would blockade Iranian ports and turn this into an economic war of attrition. And it's a question as to which economy will collapse first, the global economy, which is under strain, or the Iranian economy, which is under severe strain. And I think both sides right now think that they can win this war in the long term, which is why we're not seeing any progress at the negotiating table.
Mohammed Eslami, President Trump says the only issue that matters is preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Given how far apart both sides remain, do you believe diplomacy is still genuinely possible?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. This war, from the first day, was a kind of miscalculations by Donald Trump and his team. While the Americans we were trying to show off their tactical achievements while they were thinking about the battles. The Iranians were focused on the war. So the Iranians were thinking about the strategic toward the American-Israeli illegal war of choice battle on them. So regarding the negotiations, I think that the Iranians offered Donald Trump the best exit door for him to go out of this crisis. They offered him a three-phase of diplomatic settlement. First, ending the war. Second, opening the Strait of Hormuz. And third, discussing the nuclear issues. But unfortunately, Donald Trump didn't use this chance. He stated that he didn't respect the chance. He didn't respect the Iranian negotiators. And right now, in a very weaker position, he is in Beijing. He's trying to convince Chinese in order to put pressure on the Iranians, which I think he will not achieve his goal either.
Massoumeh Torfeh, the U.S. says no country should control access through the Strait of Hormuz, yet Iran is increasingly acting as the gatekeeper there. What are the implications of that going forward? Has the strategic reality already changed?
Well, Iran has repeatedly said that it's not going to relinquish what it regards as part of its territory, and indeed it wants the United States to get out of that area completely. And in any case, the military structures of the United States are not very near there. And the Strait of Hormuz is now proving to be far more potent and powerful than even nuclear. So what is Trump talking about, saying, you know, we want nuclear out? Yeah, Strait of Hormuz is far more important, and Iran is not giving it up. So how is the American military going to do it other than by getting deeply involved in an entrenched war that will keep it there and cost American lives, cost even more billions of dollars, and America will be stuck there for several years to come. And all Pentagon officials, all experts in America are themselves saying that America must get out as soon as possible. I think Iran has offered a reasonable solution to this. It has left the door open in 3 months to discuss nuclear and what can be done with enriched uranium. And I think this is a prime time, as the Chinese Foreign Ministry has said, this is a time that America and Iran should really come together and take advantage of the situation and make a good deal. And it's also crucial for Iran, because if Iran continues to play the very hard game, it may lose this chance. And Iran has done this in the past a few times, and it's been a mistake. So here's a chance, here's a time, and they have to sit together and come to some kind of compromise. The Turkish foreign minister has kept on insisting on this. A lot of other mediators, such as Qatar, Oman, Pakistan, everyone is insisting this is an important time, and the two sides should make a deal and should compromise.
Peter Mansoor, I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to go a little deeper now into the economic issues here. President Trump has said that Americans' financial pain has nothing to do with his Iran strategy. Is that sustainable politically as inflation and energy prices continue to rise?
Well, let's be clear about what he said. He was referring to his negotiating position vis-a-vis Iran. And I want to make clear what Iran has offered in its latest negotiations. Remove sanctions, stop the war, provide reparations, recognize Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, and then somewhere further down the line, we'll talk about the nuclear issue. That's not a serious, I agree with the president in this regard. It's not a serious offer. And so I believe what's going to happen is, since in Winston Churchill's, to paraphrase Winston Churchill, since the talk is failing, we're going to go back to war. The United States and the international community cannot accept Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. It would be equivalent to Spain and Morocco demanding tolls if you go through the Strait of Gibraltar, or Malaysia demanding tolls if you go through the Strait of Malacca. It is an international waterway, and this will stop any negotiation in the future if Iran continues to demand sovereignty over that strait.
Mohammed Eslami, I'm sure you want to respond to some of that, but I also want to ask you as well about the economic situation inside Iran. How much economic pain can Iranians endure there? Because we've heard all the stories about the hyperinflation, massive unemployment. How long can this be endured, and what kind of pressure is this putting on the government in Iran?
Talking about the economic situation, it is a very challenging moment for Dr. Pezeshkian administration to control the situation. The inflation is very high right now in Iran, and it will be higher in the next months, in the coming months. But talking about the situation of the war related to the economy of the Iranians, right now the Iranians understood that this is a war much more than their economic situation. Right now, the Iranian government has support by the Iranian nation. We are talking about, we are witnessing rally around the flag effect right now in Iran. And also, it is very important to consider that this war was not based on that much strategic planning regarding the situation in Persian Gulf. Donald Trump was going based on the calculations and based on a plan from Tel Aviv. But those persons who are living in Tel Aviv are living in a country of 10 million population. But when we are talking about Iran, the population of Tehran in night is more than 10 million persons. So it's a very big country. It's a matter of resilience for the Iranian economy, and it's a matter of scale, understanding the scale regarding the situation in Iran. So the same as they didn't achieve their goals by this kind of campaign booming all over the country, by pressuring the Iranian economy, they cannot achieve their goal as well. Yes, the situation is going to be harder economically in Iran, but it doesn't mean that the Iranians will surrender because of this situation and because of these difficulties.
Massoumeh Torfeh, when you look at the whole trajectory of this right now, stalled diplomacy, military escalation, pressure around the Strait of Hormuz, are we moving toward compromise or towards perhaps a wider regional war?
Definitely, we need a compromise here. Just to go back to some of the points made, I mean, Iran's economy is in tatters. Inflation and exchange rate and the problems are actually devastating people, plus the fact that internet is shut and a lot of people did their business through internet, not just for information. And that's causing severe hardship on people. And to go back to the point made about Strait of Hormuz and international waters, most of the mediators on between Iran and US, such as the foreign minister of Turkey, Mr. Fidan, have said that they prefer the old system, if you like, the devil you know better than anything new, because if you start changing the ownership of these, the sovereignty of these areas, then you don't know what kind of problems you might walk into, and the whole region is already in turmoil. And as far as Iran is concerned, not only does it have the internal economic problems, but as I said, it needs to be more cautious with a lot of its allies, because the Arab states of the Persian Gulf are becoming increasingly angry about the fact that they are attacked, and so there have been reports of attacks back from UAE, from Saudi Arabia, even from Kuwait, expressing anxiety through UAE. And so Iran might find itself isolated if it plays too much of a hard game. So it is absolutely crucial to compromise. Yes, I think Iran has set in basic principles, and it has said it's happy to negotiate after 30 days. It may be prepared to even adjust those principles, because that's what negotiation is all about. You will adjust your positions, you will adjust the wording of the position. So I think it is crucial that Iran did this, but also crucial for United States, because it is in deep, deep trouble. It has lost credibility all over the world. United States has no support right now anywhere, not even amongst its own people. Mr. Trump's popularity has gone right down to 35%, and amongst the kind of more educated non-partisans, it's gone down by 90%. So you know, it's really very crucial for both governments to make sense of what is happening, to be practical, stop boasting, and think about the devastation they have caused for the region.
Let's get Peter's response to some of that, and particularly what Massoumeh was saying towards the end there about Trump's credibility and the fact that he appears isolated globally on this. European allies haven't been lining up to support him on this, even when he's asked for their support. But what are the implications of all of that going forward?
Well, a couple of points. One, on the domestic front, it's true that the American people, by about a 2/3 majority, say the war is misguided. And I personally agree with that. The Congress hasn't voted on any sort of funding for the conflict. The War Powers Resolution hasn't been enforced. There's a lot of headwinds for the president domestically, especially going into the midterm elections in November. But then you look at, you know, the polling for the American people on the outcome that they would like to see from this war, and by a same 2/3 majority, they support the president when he says the Strait of Hormuz needs to remain an international waterway, and the Iranian nuclear program needs to be dismantled. And so even though they disagree with the president and his launching of this conflict, they actually agree on the end state. And this is going to give the president some leverage going forward. Now, on the international front, no doubt that the world is against what the United States and Israel have done, and for good reason. But the fact is that the shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz is impacting the rest of the world far more than it's impacting the United States. Even though it's a global oil market, and I understand that, the United States is self-sufficient in oil and gas. And so the American consumer, even though it's hurting the American consumer at the pump, is suffering far less than people elsewhere in the world. And this is going to cause some pressure on Europe and Asia to get involved, at least diplomatically, and force an end to the conflict.
All right. Mohammed Eslami, I'm going to give what's probably going to be the last word on this to you then. How do you see this playing out then as we go forward?
Right now, Iranians are thinking that not controlling the Strait of Hormuz is a kind of historical mistake for them, because considering the legal challenges, it is not binding for Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz. There are lots of opportunities for Iran to discuss with other countries, with European countries, with East Asian countries, talking about bilateral interest and bilateral relations regarding the Strait of Hormuz. And right now, the Strait of Hormuz is closed not because of Iran. Iran is going to have a new framework in the Strait of Hormuz and make it open for all the countries. Right now, the Strait of Hormuz is closed because of the U.S. naval blockade. And it is not Iran that made the problem. Iran had a kind of very positive manner during these negotiations led to the JCPOA. When Donald Trump 1.0 withdrew from JCPOA, the so-called international community didn't stand in front of Donald Trump and telling him that you are making problems for other countries. And right now, the global economy is bleeding. Other countries are paying the price for what Trump and Bibi Netanyahu had done with this illegal war. And so right now, Iranians are doing discussions with other countries in Moscow, in Muscat, in Beijing, and they are in various back channels negotiations with European countries. And it is the responsibility for the so-called international community to put pressure on Donald Trump and ask him to go back to the negotiating table.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much to all three of you, Massoumeh Torfeh, Peter Mansoor, and Mohammed Eslami. Thanks very much for being on the Newsmakers. And thank you for watching. Remember, you can follow us on social media and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Hazem Sika. We'll see you next time.